even with women, even like I said, I was single. It was different. It was completely different, and it took a little bit getting used to, And I always consider that's one of the proudest parts that I feel proudest about, was I was able to adapt. And okay, a little bit was joining the rat race, but more of it was being able to get out of my shell and communicate with people. And
can you think of any specific examples where you noticed like a clear delta there?
Well, so this job I got where I was a sales engineer, which I'd never had to do before in my life. In Saudi Arabia, they buy two of everything because it takes so much effort to ship the stuff over there. They don't just rely on one $10 million piece of equipment. They have to order two $10 million pieces of equipment to have a spare there just in case they need it.
Gotcha.
So there was never a concern about resources, people, effort to get stuff done and everything else. Here it was all about what you did. It's what you got done. In America, it's all about, you have people helping you, and you have good people and bad people and all that good stuff. But it's about what you have to get done on your own. It's about how you can progress on your own. Not only at work, but socially and, relationship-wise and everything, right? I mean, it's the individual,
I'm trying to think what it might be like to think anything other than that, because I never I've lived elsewhere, but as a student, with less responsibility.
So when you traveled, you saw different cultures, right?
Yeah.
And you had to kind of back away from that a little bit. I wouldn't say discomfort with it, but you realized that it was different, and that you had to kind of meld into it, all people are good people, and can get along on a basic level, and all those good things. But there's still a difference in culture. Well, figure in Saudi Arabia, you're dealing with 15 or 20 different cultures, at least back in then you were. Because every country in the world sent groups of people to work there.
Well, I was going to say that people I know that have moved, like when my brother lived in Doha for 6 years, he just moved here to work on the airport. But them and any other people I know that have worked for oil, or he works for Parsons, and big construction.
Big company.
So it's all expats and everybody. So it's like you're saying, it's just people shipped in.
Brits, Germans.
And they're there to make as much money as possible, take advantage of tax breaks. And
they're in a foreign country, and in most of the cases, like Saudi Arabia, it's very foreign, strange as shit, pardon my language.
No, speak freely, please.
But, so it was different to come to a culturally even single sort of environment. I mean, the people in Ventura, the people that worked for the power companies and stuff that I work with, they were kind of all of us a common ilk. You know what I'm saying? They weren't that varied, and so that took some getting used to. And it was almost like learning a new language. I'd go into these. That's how I met my wife. As a matter of fact, I'd go to these restaurants and sit in these association dinners where they would give speeches and stuff like that. My job is supposed to be to get business, right? These different oil company guys and stuff. But I was so fascinated watching them go through their, old man cultural, thing, and their the way they would communicate, the way they would talk to their wives, and just all that kind of stuff. And to me, it was almost like a movie. I was more fascinated, and I had to kind of beat my head to say, okay, wait a minute, you need to be part of this.
Yeah.
You can't sit back and watch this like you're, some kind of outsider. Then you always will be. You got to become part of it.
Well, for you, it must have been super interesting because you had this invisible difference that not everyone would catch on to, because you probably looked like you fit and you spoke like you fit for the most part.
I would say things.
But you'd say some different words.
Right? And people would go.
You'd probably come out with a couple of British slang words.
Yeah. We used to speak, when we would grow up, we would speak a sentence in 3 or 4 languages. We'd throw a little bit of Arabic, Greek, English, and American English,
Wow.
Pakistani, Indian, Lebanese, Egyptian. The cultural slang would work its way in, and you just didn't think of it out loud.
What was the town you grew up in?
So the big town over there that most people know of, or you can find on the map, is a place called Dhahran.
Dhahran.
Dhahran. It's on the Persian Gulf, which is in Saudi Arabia. You don't call it that. You call it the Arabian Gulf.
The Arabian Gulf.
That's right. Yeah. Because the Persians, as you well know, are not thought of fondly in that country. And that's a whole other political discussion for another day. And there were several communities around there that did different functions there was the production town, Abqaiq, where all the oil came into was processed. Dhahran was the big headquarters. And then where I grew up and never actually ended up working there, but in a place called Ventura, which was right on the coast. And, you think of Saudi Arabia as a desert, right? Sand dune after sand dune.
Yeah, I just think of it as just arid, and that's
correct. Yeah, but think of the coast of a beautiful, calm ocean, right?
That's true. It's very landlocked. There's not a lot to make waves, as it were, right?
That's it. And so the ocean was really teeming with all kinds of life. And let me see if I can show you some pictures. I don't know how this is going to work with what you're doing, but
well, I think what will be good is, regardless, send them to me, and then I'll try to remember.
I can send you some of these.
Maybe I can pop them into when I make the video version.
Yeah.
But just speak to them so we can.
Yeah, I was going to show you some of the ocean pictures, just so you could get an idea of what the ocean. My family. So here's.
What did your mom and dad do?
Here's the yacht club.
Your dad was in.
So we used to go there every weekend. Weekends were Thursday and Friday, but we had sailboats. My dad, sailing was one of my big things from growing up.
Yeah.
So there's probably 4 or 5 themes I'm gonna rattle on about all day today. Sailboats is one of them.
What a beautiful spot! Look at these cars.
Yeah, this is I think the 60s. This is the 60s. So behind those cars is a huge oil pipeline that runs down to the terminal where they would put it on ships, huge tankers, and send it to America, right? So they just my dad actually was in charge of maintenance for the terminal, and he would occasionally take a couple of his working guys and a couple of cranes, and they'd put a couple of pilings in and clear the beach a little bit, and pretty soon you had a yacht club, with a pier and berths and everything else. But and as I got it, my dad we built a big boat in our backyard, an actual big sailboat.
Wow.
And then people started bringing other boats in, and so it went from just little dinghies to the big sailboats. And then when my dad retired in Greece, which is where he ended up retiring, and I've got some pictures of that too. But
was one of those cars in the background there the Chevy that you mentioned when we were chatting before this?
You do have a good memory, and I'm going to be
I take good notes.
Very careful around you. Yeah.
I've got all my notes here. I got no Ford allowed. I wrote down.
The driver
shipped it to Greece.
The driver Chevy. I mean the drummer Chevy.
Yeah. Well, I have here. You can't keep a beat worth of shit, and you had a Sears drum set.
But sailing. So when my dad retired, he bought a very beautiful place on an island in Greece, and the reason why he called his boss and said, "I'm done," was that they just delivered his 43-foot sloop to the island, and it was waiting there for him. So he said, "I'm out of here,"
Yeah.
And so we grew up on boats. We grew up on sailboats, and it's been a big part of our lives.
Wow.
And And then
So you've
Greece.
actually lived day to day on a boat.
Oh yeah.
As like
Oh,
a
yeah.
long.
Whenever we would go to Greece, and he was there, he lived there for, the healthy part of his life. He also had We'd come flying into Athens. He'd pick us up and take us straight to the marina where the boat was, and we're like, zombies, from flying 14, 15 hours. He'd get us to put sails up and get out on the ocean, and we'd sail to the island. The island that we had the boat. It was about a 5-hour sail or so.
Wow. A 5-hour sail and working on the sailboat and
After
pulling lines after all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, your dad was like ready to go.
He was ready. He needed a crew, and that was it. Yeah,
Yeah.
love you very much. Get the.
Yeah.
Boy, we had some experiences. We ran into some force 8 winds one time. It was one of my wife's, who I'm married to, met in Ventura, actually. Another story. But it was one of her first times she came with us to sail, and she could hardly swim. She had this cute little life vest on,
Mm-hmm.
And she thought sailing meant laying out on the top deck and getting sun, right? That she would complain, can you guys move those sails over there because the sun is over there? So that I can get. Well, we're bouncing through this ocean. The boat is threatening to come apart, and I look up and she's just laying on the deck, catching rays. It was amazing. Anyways, we got into a safe harbor, and I think I even have that picture of that harbor. But
I'm glad you brought these pictures. It's great.
Well, I and I'm sorry it's
No, not at all.
taking me a little time to actually started putting them in a little folder, so I might leave this folder with you if you want. After we got in this little harbor, so you can see there's little. Oh, I'm sorry about the noise.
No, it's okay.
But
This is your dad?
You can see these little homes in the village.
He loves his boat. Look at that.
That's me, by the way.
Oh, that's you.
That's you.
Okay.
Me passing out after sailing in huge winds and being totally delirious. But so these little Greek harbors are all the same. There's a couple of 4 or 5 houses.
Great shot.
And a little restaurant, a little tavern, with ouzo, and I think probably the easiest thing would be for me to.
Yeah, send all those when we're done, and I'll drop them in.
So sailing was a really big part of our lives, and my wife has kind of caught into that a little bit.
How did you and your wife meet?
Well, that's an interesting story. So these engineering dinners I was telling you about.
Mm-hmm. Like sales dinners?
The sales dinners, right?
Yeah.
There was a waitress there that was very cute. And single, just having come back from Saudi Arabia, hey, this is America, right? This is where everybody has fun and parties. Trying to sweet talk this girl. I didn't get very far. But she looked at me one of these dinners and said, you know what? You're cute as a bug. I'm going to introduce you to somebody. Come here on Friday night. I'm going to introduce you to my Greek friend. Greek friend. I'm never gonna get together with a Greek girl. Promise myself from a young age. That's the dumbest idea in the world. Getting together with Greek girls. So I show up that Friday night, and in the bar is every single guy from the sales dinner from the Wednesday before with their wives. Hey, dudes, you guys just hang out here or what? Oh, no, we just decided to come today or whatever. The girl shows up, the girl that was going to introduce me. And she goes and gets my wife and brings her in. And this little 5'1" fiery Greek girl, looks at me, and I turn around, and every one of these people are watching us. It's kind of like a
Protection.
show. It's a show,
Yep. This is great.
I'm getting really uncomfortable, and she goes, what are you doing here? She and no, what are you doing here in Ventura? I says, well, I can't. I was working.